What's going on, YouTube family? Roshad Lamar's back in the building with another video. I got a top 10 best games of 2020 list. I have not played all the major releases for the year, but I have played enough games to make a list, so I'm gonna go ahead and present that to y'all. I also only have a PS4, Switch, and a just built PC, so no Xbox content or anything like that. Without further ado, let's get it. Number 10, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Spider-Man Miles Morales was a really fun game to me. Awesome quest, except for the fetch quest. The story was great. I really enjoyed the combat. Swinging around the city was amazing. There were just so many things about the game that I enjoyed overall. If you haven't seen my review, I'd encourage you to check it out. In it, I mentioned that I enjoyed the story a lot. The unique villains were a treat for me because we always see the same old villains. Having something new in the Tinkerer was welcome to me. Bear in mind that I still have yet to play the original, so I don't really have anything to compare it to except for the really super old Spider-Man games. Overall, I had a lot of fun with the game and would love to go back and finish all the side quests and whatnot, so it's earned my spot at number 10.
Whoa! Let's not shoot each other, all right?
Number 9, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. For anyone who doesn't know, I love Mario games. I've played and completed nearly every single Mario game with the exception of some of the bootleg Mario games and ROM hacks and things like that.
Princess, look! On the statue's head! Mario?
The 3D All-Star Collection includes the first three 3D Mario releases, being Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. Galaxy being my favorite, one of the GOATs. Though there really isn't anything new here, I did find myself getting pretty caught up playing Galaxy and Sunshine all over again, so the games have held up extremely well, and I had to force myself to stop playing just so I could play some other shit. They also included the soundtracks from all three games, which was a nice touch. Even with no graphical improvements and major additions, it was still a joy to be able to play all three of some of the biggest Mario games ever made. That's why it's earned its place at my number 9. Number 8, CrossCode. So what the hell is a CrossCode? Well, I heard about it from one of the homies. Shout out to my boy Jonathan. And all the nerds really know what CrossCode is. This game actually released in 2018 for Windows and Mac, and finally released on PS4 recently. That's what I played it on, so I'm gonna count this as a 2020 release. It's an action RPG where you play as the main character, an android who wakes up in a mysterious world and has to figure out her past, or if she even has a past. The combat's fun as hell. You can use multiple AI-controlled party members. The combat can take place at a distance or up close. There's blocking and dodge mechanics, which adds a lot of depth to the game. It has crazy and overwhelming enemies and boss battles. This shit is glorious as hell. Highly recommended for anyone looking for an RPG fix. So that's my number 8. Number 7, Hades. Wow, okay, this game came totally out of nowhere for me. I first heard about it at the Game Awards of all places, because it kept showing up in so many categories for top game. So I had to see for myself and say, yo, what the hell is this Hades game? The game is awesome. The art direction is just sick as hell. It's a roguelike game where you play as Hades' son, Zagreus, and if you lose, you gotta go all the way back to the fucking beginning. These types of games I have a love and hate relationship with. Like, I have played the Dark Souls series and it kind of reminds me of that, except different. The progress always starts kind of fast, but sometimes you get hit with a major roadblock and you just can't get past a certain boss or group of enemies. Just when you think you have certain bosses and areas figured out, they throw some new shit at you out of nowhere, like a new boss, usually way harder than the one you're used to facing. In order to get through, it will take everything you've got. And yo, the soundtrack for this game is so fucking sick. When I first heard it, I was like, damn, this shit is crucial. It's gotta be in my top 10. That's why it's sitting at my number 7. Number 6, Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana is an action RPG that's a remake of Seiken Densetsu 3 that was released on Super Nintendo ages ago. It happened to be one of the best Super Nintendo games back then, one of the best RPGs, period, and the remake does not disappoint. Laughable voice acting aside, there's 6 characters in the game that you can actually play as, each with their own unique story and abilities. It's actually impossible to experience the full story on a single playthrough. I love this about the original game and it's still present in the remake. The real-time combat is heavily expanded upon in this remake with new moves and abilities. The soundtrack has also been updated, allowing you to listen to their new tunes as well as roll it back to the SNES days. Every remake should have a feature like this when it's possible. Being in a 3D space, the game is also way longer, with some story sequences and dungeons expanded upon significantly. The original game, while great, is not as long as this remake is. This one is even more fun, very incredible game, nicely done graphics, good story, highly recommended. It's gonna be my number 6. Number 5, Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Ori and the Will of the Wisp is one of those Metroidvania style games. It seems like a lot of people are doing games like this these days, but I tell you, I really like it and I just love it because it seems like they continually find ways to expand further and further on this type of gameplay design, like adding new RPG elements and whatnot, in which Ori and the Will of the Wisp is no stranger to. This is a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori finds himself in trouble again, and to help his owl friend, he has to go around solving all these puzzles, gaining new abilities, to constantly better navigate the terrain. It's a heavy movement-based game. Like, you can really maneuver your way around, and you very much have to in order to really find your way. And there's a lot of things that are out of reach or tough to get to, or you might have to do it within a certain amount of speed and proximity. It has to be very exact the way you do certain things, and it's very fun and very fluid. There's a lot of different combat abilities. There's a lot of different puzzles, platforming elements. It's very fun, good boss battles, and the animation in the game is nothing short of astounding. That's obviously the first thing I noticed and first thing anyone is going to notice when they play the game. Unlike some of the other Metroidvania style games, Ori and the Will of the Wisp is quite long, so don't expect to complete it in like 1 or 2 sittings or anything. It just isn't gonna happen. That's my number 5. Phoenix Rising. Immortals Phoenix Rising. Where to begin with this game? I actually saw this first time at the Xbox Game Showcase of all places. I know, right? The thing about it though is they really screwed up on the marketing for this game. Nobody, or hardly anyone, myself included, knew what the hell this game was because the way the trailer was, you couldn't really tell. But it's actually Zelda Breath of the Wild. But man, this game is so damn good. It's basically The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, except with different character, story, and lore. The gameplay is very similar, except there's more platforming challenges since Phoenix can jump and move around faster and more fluently in general than Link can. The game world is humongous with countless different areas to discover, vaults to explore, puzzles to solve. There's great combat in the game as well. There's dodging and parry mechanics, special abilities, fully voice acted. The game took me completely by surprise. Ended up being a very pleasant one. I highly recommend anyone looking for a Zelda-like game to go ahead and pick this one up. You will not be disappointed. It's gonna be easily my number 4. Next!
I'm pregnant with Aris's baby, and you can't stop us.
Number 3, Crash Bandicoot 4. Guys, I've played and beaten every Crash game in the trilogy. Crash Team Racing, Crash Bash, all that stuff. Skipped all the stuff when Naughty Dog wasn't really making the games anymore. Man, Crash Bandicoot 4 is not only the best Crash game, but it's one of the best platform games ever made. And no, I am not fucking kidding. It is that good. I'm gonna tell you why. This game is bright, vibrant, colorful, well animated, well voice acted. From a technical standpoint, it pretty much just does everything perfectly. The platforming challenges and new mask abilities you use throughout the game led to some of the most legendary levels in platforming that I have ever played. No bullshit. Some people don't really appreciate the straightforward nature of Crash Bandicoot levels, which I can understand. And even I kind of had some feelings about that, particularly like in the very first Crash Bandicoot game. But I'm telling you, this game hit different. There are multiple other characters to use, each with their own unique styles. Their level design is totally unique from that of the regular Crash levels, so you get some good variety there. There's an insane amount of collectibles, so much so some of the people like the completionists, for example, and a couple others, Some Call Me Johnny, have even complained about the level of collectibles, but I loved it. I just enjoyed the challenge of it all. So there's time trials, there's 12 gems to collect per each level, amazing boss battles. What? Man, there's just challenge on top of challenge on top of challenge in this game. Time trial relics with different levels to each. There's like the bronze, the gold, the platinum, and then some sort of super duper ultra platinum shit that you get way later. There's so many different things. The Cortex things that you have to do. So many different things to do in this game. Highly recommend it. One of the best platformers I ever played. I played it a lot, really enjoy it, and I'm nowhere near 100% completion still. Highly recommend it. It's gonna be my number 3.
The show must go on!
So you're old Sakai, the sensei's new pet.
Number 2, Ghost of Tsushima.
Is that what he told?
Yo, I'm keeping it 1,000 with y'all though. Ghost of Tsushima, when I first saw it, it was one of those games where I saw the pretty graphics and stuff. I saw it at an E3, you know, on TV, of course. Saw it at E3, and I thought, yeah, the graphics are nice, particle effects are nice, but I wasn't really super interested in it. I don't think I've ever been so fucking wrong about anything in my life. while I was trying to purchase the game, I noticed that it was getting 9s and 10s all across the board. So there was a part of me that felt like I was missing out, like I had this sense of desperation, like, oh, I gotta get this fucking game. And I was going to store after store, and they were saying, we don't have it, we're sold out, and all these different things. Eventually I broke down and I just went ahead and I downloaded it. I actually had forgot that you could do that because I usually never download games. But I got the game. The game involves a lone samurai named Jin, whose basically entire combat battalion got utterly obliterated in combat at the very beginning of the game. You can pick up after that and go on some quests to save your uncle, the island of Tsushima from the wrath of the Khan and the invading Mongols. The graphics almost brought me to tears, bruh. I was looking like, yo, what the heck am I looking at? All the particles effects from the leaves and flowers and the grass, and it's just something that I have not really seen done so well before. There's practically endless exploration, new quests that keep unlocking as you beat the previous quest. It's like it's just never freaking ending. The combat in the game has a lot of depth and can get a little busted sometimes with some of the special abilities. Like if you go ahead and watch my review, some of the stuff with the kunais can be quite cheap. Some of the better abilities are a little broken, but it's overall very well done. The game is very, very long. Amazing story, well voice acted, great gameplay, lots of variety to keep you interested, and it's just very fun and addicting overall. As a more mainstream game, I really feel like Ghost of Tsushima probably deserved the Game of the Year award over the game that did end up getting Game of the Year. Alas, that didn't happen, but it was a very well-deserved experience. Even has DLC and multiplayer and all these things that it didn't have upon release. So definitely a fully featured package. A lot is being brought to the table, but even in my list, it's gonna have to settle for number 2 because the number 1 game is one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. Forget about 2020. This is one of the best games ever made.
Gotcha, bitch!
Psych! Before we get into the number 1 game, I want to do a couple honorable mentions. These are games that I played and enjoyed, but they weren't quite enough to make it onto my top 10 list. Neo 2. This game was hard as fuck with piece of shit difficulty. It almost made the list, but I really didn't have enough time to play it. I pretty much was stuck in the first area and didn't get out of it and didn't feel like dedicating the time required to really keep continuing to get further and further little by little. Streets of Rage 4. The game got a lot of buzz when it first released, and I thought it was going to be amazing because of that, but I played through it and to me it just wasn't that great. It needs much more content to be considered a serious contender for Game of the Year. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. I actually really like this game. I did a review on it. It's my first review and a very shitty review. Alas, I did a review on it, and it's a little too old school to compete with the big boys in 2020. Resident Evil 3 Remake. While I enjoyed the game, it was missing levels from the original, and I believe it was even shorter than the original game as well, which is a true head scratcher. Overall, it might make more sense to put it into a top 10 most disappointing game of 2020 list rather than best game.
The eyes of one who has bathed in motto, which would make you a soldier.
Number 1, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Y'all see this? Y'all see this? Final Fantasy VII Remake is a God tier game. God tier game. This is legit one of the greatest and most awesome games that I've ever played in my entire life. This is not coming from some big Final Fantasy VII fanboy. I actually did like Final Fantasy VII, but it wasn't my favorite Final Fantasy of the series. Now, after playing the remake, this is easily my favorite Final Fantasy game of the series. I loved everything about this game. It truly embodies what makes me love gaming in general, what makes me love Final Fantasy games, what makes me love RPG games. The Final Fantasy VII Remake really lit a fire within me that I've not had since the original release. Really since Final Fantasy 6 through 10, all of those games gave me a similar feeling that I have not had since. There are certain games that we all can remember that had us totally engrossed, whether it be Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or Final Fantasy VII Remake, or some other game for you personally that really had you start to love gaming and the possibilities of how a game can make you feel as you play through the story, unlock mysteries, get attached to the character, get stronger as you level up in combat, play through mini games, fun mini games. All those elements were missing from the modern Final Fantasies, or at least most of those elements. The Final Fantasy VII Remake proves that Square Enix is able to critically analyze their own game, determine what to emulate and what to modernize, and successfully execute a winning game design formula. I was blown away by everything about the game, down to the voice acting, the graphics, the gameplay.
Don't deny me. Embrace me.
The combat system is perhaps the best action RPG combat system that I have ever played. The materia system is arguably better than the almost perfect system from the original. I took off work to play this game and I did not stop playing except to eat, shower, and sleep. And that's literally it. I did not leave the house at all for like, I think about 4 days.
11 out of 10.
The story of the game, mainly at the end, heavily diverges from what occurred in the original. For those who don't know, the Final Fantasy VII Remake only covers about maybe 1/8 of the original game. They've expanded it heavily. So some of the things that happened were pretty critical to the story at the time. In this remake, they changed some things near the end and it's going to change the overall outcome of the game. I personally welcome this change because the original game came out in, I believe, like 1997 or something. So you're talking about 20 plus years ago. At this point, I'd rather the internet know-it-alls not come in, hey, I know exactly what happens. This character dies, this happens to this, and this thing disappears, and you know, all these different things. I'd rather everyone be on the same playing field. Now we all have to go into the sequels that are obviously going to come out, not knowing exactly the direction that the story is going to go. We've got the general outline, but overall the outcome of a lot of things are going to change, and I feel like that shakeup is something that's good. Some people are really apprehensive toward that, but I think if something changes, then it is what it is. The original story exists. The story's not going to be ruined for that game. The story's not going to change. I have my original copy of the game for the PS1, and I have a downloaded copy on the PS4. So if all else fails, I just go back and play that game. But for now, the Final Fantasy VII Remake is my new favorite Final Fantasy game and one of my top favorite games of all time. And now it's on my top 10 list as my #1 game of 2020. Well, folks, that's it. That's my top 10 games of 2020. Final Fantasy VII is officially crowned as the top #1 best game for 2020 for me. Do you have different thoughts about it? Drop me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Give the video a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Also share it if you think you have any friends who might enjoy it. I appreciate y'all checking me out. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.